My son's homophobic insults and false abuse claims against my husband forced me to send him to live with his mom. This entire situation is kind of odd, and honestly, I'm a bit heartbroken for my husband. I'm Sean, 37M. My husband is Zach, 36M, and my son is 16. I'm not saying his name. I divorced my ex-wife after she cheated on me for the entirety of our marriage. That was over a decade ago. I don't see her anymore. My son is mine, already over and done. I met Zach when I was 28. My son was 7. Zach and I hit it off instantly. I was finally in a place to start dating again, and thankfully, he was the first person I was interested in. We connected on everything my ex-wife and I did, and a million more things. People say life has a plan for you, and honestly, I believe it. I'd go through a million more divorces and be cheated on over and over if I ended up with him every time. One of the big things was my son. Zach was hesitant at first, just because of the situation, but he wanted a family badly, and I was excited for him to meet my son. After dating for a year, I talked to my ex and told her I was introducing our son to a guy I was seeing. I told her it was serious and I saw a future with him. She was happy for me. We have a very good relationship now. She just told me to tell her when I was going to do it, so she could be prepared if our son had any questions for her when he visited next. Zach and my son became best friends. They did everything together. They loved playing Minecraft together and spent hours sitting in front of the TV. I loved watching them. I was so happy the first person I found after my ex was this amazing. After about 6 months, I asked Zach to move in, and the rest is exactly as I've been describing. Amazing. My son started calling Zach his other dad when he was 10, a very sweet moment, which makes this hurt worse. Well, last weekend, my son had 3 of his friends over. They were playing video games in his room, and I had just left to do grocery shopping for the week, so it was just them and Zach. I don't know how this topic came up, but things got very homophobic. My husband was sitting on the couch, and I guess my son and his friends thought both he and I had left, but it was just me who left. My son's room is connected to the living room, so if you're sitting in the living room, it's not super hard to hear what's going on in his room if he's being loud enough. 4 teenage boys were playing video games. One of them asked how it feels having an F slur. I don't know if I can say it or not on here. As a father, my son laughed and said it was kind of shitty. They said my husband probably touched him when he was little, and my son replied, he can try it now. He'll get his ass beat. So, not only being hateful towards Zach, but now also threatening him over something we all know he would never do. They kept saying things like, which one do you think takes it in the ass? Probably the F slur. Another said, at least your real dad still likes women. It was just a bunch of hateful comments. My husband sat there listening to it all, silently crying. Also, Zach has spent a good 4 hours a day at the gym for the last 3 years, so I don't know who's getting their ass beat, but it isn't him. I got home about 2 hours later to find my husband sitting in his car with a bag packed, waiting for me so he could leave, but didn't want to leave my son alone. I asked, what's going on? Why are you leaving? He told me everything. I tried to understand as best I could. I insisted he wasn't serious, that he was just being a stupid kid acting tough with his friends, but it didn't matter. The damage was done. Zach left. I went inside and went off on my son. His friends left, and I spent a good 3 hours going back and forth with my son. At first, he was very unapologetic and kind of agreed with his friends. I asked if he actually thought my husband sexually abused him when he was younger, and he said no, but that kids block those kinds of memories out, so really, who knows? I told him to pack his things. He's living with his mother. She lives 3 hours away, which means a new school, new friends if any at all, less private space as he'd have to share a room with his stepbrother, etc. Just everything that you'd expect going from being a single kid in a house to one of 4. My son instantly changed his attitude. He was crying, begging me not to send him away. He said he didn't mean it. He was just lying to seem cool to his friends. I asked why he doubled down when they left, and he didn't have an answer. I told him to pack his things. He was leaving in the morning. I told my ex the situation, and she agreed he needs something drastic. What he did wasn't okay at all. Fast forward to now, and my husband is back, but he cries every night. Honestly, it feels like he's mourning, which I don't want. Because when you mourn, you don't get over someone. You get as close to indifferent as possible to keep living your life without them. I don't want that. I want my husband and my son to have that strong bond one know they have, and I don't want them to throw it away over this. I don't agree with what my son did, but those accusations, at minimum, can ruin someone's life and at most end it. I'm disgusted with my son. He calls me every day and tells me he misses me and Zach and wants to come home. I stay strong on the phone, but afterward, I break down and my husband tries to console me, telling me my son can come back and he will leave. But no, I'm not doing that. I just don't know what to do. I miss my son. I miss coming home and seeing them spending time together. I've thought about therapy for him, but he said no. You can't force therapy on someone. They'll just sit there for an hour and piss away for $100. I need advice. Comment 1, NTA. Therapist here, but obviously, everyone is different, so take it with a grain of salt. Parenting is sometimes wildly difficult, and this is one of those times. You did exactly the right thing. There are so many lessons for your son to learn here. Just to name a few, he needs to not only learn the consequences of his actions, but that some things truly cannot be taken back. Trying to be cool by being an ass for absolutely no reason will not end well. It will not only alienate the people who actually care about you, but the people who get off on being unkind will eventually turn on you too. Most people do not get along with their step-parents, and he has been taking that for granted. Separately, if you let him back and Zach leaves, your relationship with your son will be forever altered, as well as your son's life in general. All the love Zach has for him and their connection can be repaired once he gets his head out of his ass. If Zach leaves, your son will know he ruined his father's relationship for the rest of his life. The guilt and resentment from that can cause huge problems later on in life. This can be worked on. It can be resolved. I strongly suggest making family therapy a requirement for moving back into the house, with an LGBTQIA+ friendly therapist who can get down to the root of how harmful this was and make him understand that. Individual therapy is also a great idea, but family dynamic stuff needs to take priority. Comment 2. This is great advice, but considering the man alleged he was possibly a pedophile, Opie's husband clearly isn't going to risk his future on someone who is capable of being that callous. I wouldn't either. This is fixable, but it doesn't mean it will be. It's not any different if a blended family comes together and the daughter accuses her stepdad of touching her. There was literally a post 2 months ago about this exactly. He moved out, divorced the mom, and refused to stop the divorce once she confessed her bio dad put her up to it, so he could get with the mom. The kid thought dad would come back if it happened. Newsflash, he didn't. That said, everyone told him that his future wasn't worth risking it. Just because he didn't get a full-on accusation and a police investigation doesn't mean he should be asked to risk it. I'm saying the same here. Zach said he would move out if the son came back. I think we are likely beyond counseling, at least for a while. Certainly not while he's a minor. There is hope in the future, though, and this is the way. Comment 3. Yep. I wouldn't risk it, and neither should Zach. Some things cannot be taken back. Some harms cannot be undone. Comment 4. I tell my kids this when we talk about choosing our words. Words are like toothpaste. Once you squeeze it out of the tube, it's almost impossible to put it back. Update. 2 days later. This will be long, sorry. Not going to lie, the entire original post was basically a disaster. I expected a few replies, with only one actually being helpful, and then the post died. That didn't happen that way. There was so much back and forth and so much hate towards me being gay. I expected some, but holy cow. I was done with that post when someone suggested that my husband and I both abuse my son sexually. Wow, disaster. I thought living in rural Montana was bad with the homophobia I deal with. As for the update, I spent the day yesterday with my son. A lot of people accused me of not taking his claim seriously. I did. The first 30 minutes of our initial talk, when this all happened, was about if he actually was abused. He said no. I asked again when I got here. I made sure to let him know there is no one I'd believe over him. He wouldn't be punished for saying the truth if he was abused, but I needed to know. Again, he said no. He was never touched or raped by my husband. On to the questions and his answers. Why would you say something so dangerous? My son said he was feeling rejected by my husband since, as of late, he hasn't been spending nearly as much time with him, which is true. A large part of my husband's life is my son. Zach tutors him. He coaches him in his sport, basketball. He goes on morning runs with my son. He used to drive him to and from school before my son got his car. They both share a lot of interests, and as a kid-step-parent dynamic, they spend a lot of time together. Towards the end of last year's summer, when my son was still with his mother's, my husband talked to me. He said he wanted to start spending more time apart, but not that kind of apart. He wanted to have more of a social life. He wanted to be able to do things away from us, but not like separate, if that makes sense. He realized my son would be leaving for college in about 2 years, and my son was such a large part of his life He didn't want to become depressed after he left with nothing to do. I agreed and said it was a good idea, and he had my full support, as long as he still came home every night at a reasonable time and didn't let his relationship with my son suffer or anything. As of now, yes, it is different. My son doesn't need rides to school. He doesn't need tutoring. He doesn't do basketball anymore. Their hobbies are still the same, but my husband has been spending less time at home. It's not like he's gone all hours of the day and comes back at 3 a.m., but he has a healthy social life. I don't know how to explain it. Do you realize how dangerous it is to say something like that if it isn't true? He said yes, and he didn't think anyone was listening. He was just going along with his friend. That didn't make sense to me, so I asked why he stood by his statement after I sent his friends home. He said he thought he shouldn't back down from something he says, kind of like a ride or die thing. I don't know. I told him that's stupid and never to do that, especially if he regrets what he said and it wasn't true in the first place. He said he knows. He realized that when it happened, but he just couldn't stop himself from keeping it up. It didn't hit him that it was serious until I told him he was going to stay with his mother. Why do you want to be friends with people that talk so much shit about your parents? He doesn't want to, but the kids bully the hell out of everyone they don't like, and he feels like he's in too deep to back out now. I do understand. I had kids in my school like that. They bullied everyone. They were cool to me, though, until they found out I was gay. Then they fucked my last few years of high school up. I told him I get it to some degree, but he doesn't have to add into what they're saying. A small chuckle and a yeah is usually enough to get people to move on from something. I also asked about them bullying him because they kind of were. He said yeah, but they're not that bad with it. They just rip into him every so often about having gay dads. And I guess over time it made my son feel poorly towards my husband. The distance my husband was setting with my son, mixed with his friends saying the shit they did, just added up to that. I told him I understood. I want to make it clear I don't support what he said. I understand the emotions behind it, though. Why didn't you talk to us about how you were feeling? He said he didn't want to start anything. My husband and he are still close. He didn't know how he felt and was more confused than anything. So why say something that would cause a fight if he didn't even know if he felt that way? I also understood this. At this point, I think this is just one miscommunication after another. Open dialogue would have prevented all of this from happening. There were a lot more questions, but my ex and I ended with, do you actually feel remorseful for what you said, or are you just tired of sleeping in the same room as a 7-year-old? He's actually remorseful. He told me even if he was staying there all year, he would still feel terrible over what he said about Zach. Reassuring him again, if anything did happen, now is the time to speak, and I will believe him. Again, he said no. He started crying, saying he just missed us. It was an emotional moment. We hugged. I told him I loved him, and that would never change. I asked him to leave the room so his mother and I could talk. We decided on a monthly assessment to see when he would get privileges back, ending with him coming home. There were conditions to all of this, like family therapy, solo therapy, and cutting his friends off completely, which I would help with. He was against the solo therapy, but came around. He asked if Zach was here. I said no, but I would ask him if he wanted to come next time, which my son smiled at. I still agree, sending my son to my ex-wife's was the right move. A lot of people aggressively disagree, which is fine. My parenting style isn't for everyone. One of you told me I should beat the kids up though. So like, do I really care if some of you disagree with how I parent? I don't know, not really. The situation still sucks. I don't know what else to say. I miss my son. He isn't coming home right now, and I wish I was leaving her house with him. As it stands right now, my son is living with his mother and her family. He will get his phone, PS5, and car back at the end of the first, second, and third month, in that order. He will be able to move out of the room he's currently in and into the guest house at the end of month 4. Every month after that is touch and go, and we'll discuss at the end of each month what we think. My son will do bi-weekly solo therapy, and we will all do bi-weekly family therapy. We see it as he should do solo therapy 1 week, then family therapy the next. He can come back sooner. I want him back. My husband wants him back. He's wanted him back since he left. His mother is holding strong, but she also sees he's just miserable, so I think she'll break at some point and give up the guest house early. It is what it is. At the end of the night, my son asked if Zach would want to hear from him so he could apologize, and I told him yes. I've told him yes a few times now. Zach would love to hear from him. I doubt he'd have to wait longer than 1 ring before Zach picked up. My son called him as I was leaving, so I know they spoke. I don't know about what, though. When I got home, Zach was feeling low and blaming himself more for all of this. I told him it's no one's fault. We just needed to talk to each other more. All in all, I think my son is remorseful, and he was just feeling trapped and isolated in a shitty situation and didn't know how to get out of it. I feel for him, and I wish I saw what was happening sooner. Thank you all for the advice, or most of you. Some of you were just nasty and hateful. Someone on my first post called Stoner Therapist, something like that, gave good advice. I didn't say it on that post, but if you read this, good job. Thanks for it. The next update will be when he comes home. Hopefully, it will be soon. Thanks, y'all. Comment 1. Hey, sounds like you've had a heck of a roller coaster. Family dynamics can turn into a jigsaw puzzle where half the pieces are hiding under the couch cushions. You did what you thought was best in a tough situation, and it's clear you cared deeply for your son and your husband. Props to you for navigating such choppy waters and for keeping communication open, even when it's as fun as stepping on Legos in the dark. It's great to hear that you're setting up some therapy. It's like oiling the squeaky wheels of family interaction. Just remember, healing and understanding take time, like fine wine or figuring out why the printer won't work even though it's plugged in and the Wi-Fi is fine. Keeping my fingers crossed that your family puzzle comes together smoothly, even if it takes a bit more searching under the furniture for those missing pieces. Here's to hoping the next update is full of good news and homecomings. Comment 2. Screw those assholes that show hate. Sounds like you have a wonderful plan of action in action. Hope your son makes the right choices and friends going forward. Now, to the next story. Story 2. Karen demands to move in after blowing all her money on travel. Am I a jerk for refusing? So, I, 32M, possess a modest 3-bedroom house that I've been paying off for the past decade. It's not fancy, but it's mine, and I'm proud of it. My sister, 29, and her husband, 31, are typical free-spirited individuals. They've always talked about leaving the rat race and enjoying life to the fullest. All that talk, they finally got it done a few months ago. They sold their house during a soaring market, expecting the profit to fund a year-long trip. They assumed they could make ends meet by traveling cheaply, staying in hostels or Airbnbs, and doing odd jobs on the side. At first, they stayed in fancier places and ate out frequently, believing they had enough of a cushion. However, they ran out of money after just 2 months. They misjudged how quickly bills would add up, especially with 2 children, aged 8 and 5, to feed and care for. Now that their money has been depleted, they have chosen to discontinue full-time travel, but do not want to settle down just yet. Instead, they wanted to stay with me without paying rent for the next 10 months while they figure things out. They say they'll attempt to take occasional trips if they discover really good discounts, but they mostly want to stay at my house. I told them no. My house isn't big enough. I don't want the interruption, and I don't think it's fair for them to rely on me because their plan failed. I offered to help them find a cheap rental or even cover some of their expenditures for a few months until they could get back on their feet, but it wasn't enough. My sister yelled at me, accusing me of being selfish and jealous of their adventurous lifestyle. To make matters worse, my parents agree with her, claiming that family should support family and that I am being very rigid. My parents live in a small apartment and cannot accommodate my sister's family, which is probably why they are putting her on me. They stated that I don't grasp the importance of experiences and should be more helpful. Some of our mutual acquaintances have also advised me to be more understanding, but I believe it is utterly ridiculous to expect me to house their entire family for nearly a year simply because they did not plan adequately. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking stories from real life happening around you.